you need to show the contrast between what Trump was able to do as president when it came to securing the border, not only with the policies, but the physical wall, and what Kamala Harris decided to do, which was largely be MIA when she was given responsibility as the border czar.
Kamala Harris's border policies are sexist and harmful to women. Depending on which report you're looking at, they say between 60 to 70% of women will be sexually assaulted trying to cross the border. I've never heard Kamala Harris, or frankly any Democrat, really champion this issue on the border as a women's rights and a human rights issue. The fact that sexual violence is normalized, human trafficking is normalized along our southern border, and that's why for the first time since 2001, it's the highest number of Americans who say that illegal immigration is a critical threat to our country.
All right, guys, welcome to the Sean Spicer Show. 1 year and 1 day. If you paid attention to yesterday's show, you know we celebrated our 1 year anniversary. Thanks to everyone who has shared, all our great sponsors for making this show possible and all the great growth that we have seen. So thank you for that. As I said, 3 days down of the nonsense in Chicago, one more painful day to go. Tonight, it's Kamala's night, man. I'm sure everybody's excited. When will she speak, though? That's the big thing. They keep pushing these speakers well past my bedtime. Truth be told, I go to sleep. I wake up, and then I watch them online. I think I'm not alone on that. Actually, probably a lot of you just wake up and don't watch the speech, but that's a whole nother story. Tim Walz was last night. We're going to break that down. Amazing panel to get to today. A jobs report that's getting buried and why you need to know about it. Some cool interactions with President Trump. RFK, what's going to happen in Arizona tomorrow? I think this could be a game changer. I'm going to tell you why. The media doesn't want to play this up because they know how consequential this could be. I'm going to play. And our friend Steve Cortes is here. Unreal video. If you haven't seen this, it's just, I don't even want to try to sell it to you now, because once you watch it, you're going to go, oh, wow. It's everything in a bottle that tells you what's wrong with the Democratic Party today. And we're going to play it for you. Before I get to that, I want to tell you about what's going on for so many of us in America. I know that you're probably feeling sick to your stomach. That wasn't just what happened at the DNC last night. 70 to 80% of us actually have legitimate gut issues. I'm talking indigestion, constipation, bloating, whatever. It wasn't just all the blowhardedness going on in Chicago last night. Legit gut issues, and a healthy gut affects so much more than just what's going on in your stomach. It's your skin, your mood. So many things are affected by this that I didn't know. If you think back a couple episodes ago, we had Tina Anderson on from Just Thrive. She explained this really well. I would call your attention back to that episode. It's episode 198, and we get into a really in-depth discussion about so much that I didn't realize. I have started taking the Just Thrive products, both the Just Calm, which, if you know me, I think a lot of people are like, you should be taking the Just Calm, and you should have been taking it for a long time. But I also now have been taking the probiotic that comes from Just Thrive. It's super important because 99% of probiotics on the market don't actually get through the stomach to the intestine, don't do what they're supposed to do. Just Thrive's products are 1,000 times more effective. They have more clinical research than anything on the market, and they actually get to where they're supposed to, which is kind of critical if that's what you're taking it for, right? And I explained to you how important these things are to a healthy gut, to healthy living, to your mood, to your skin, to your overall health. With Just Calm and Just Thrive, you will have the ultimate stress fighting duo to help you win every single day and make you feel a heck of a lot better than you probably do. For a limited time only, you can try Just Thrive, the probiotic, or Just Calm, and save 20% on your first order. Just go to justthrivehealth.com and use promo code SPICER. I'm telling you, these little changes can make a big difference in your life. And just switching out, if you take a probiotic, go over to Just Thrive, try what they have on that 90-day, and you will feel the difference. Anyway, as I said, I want to bring in the panel, talk about the convention. I want to talk about this jobs report, because it's not just some jobs report. There's a big change going on in our economy, something the media doesn't want us to know, and you need to know about it, because these are the kind of conversations that we should be having with folks as the Democrats try to spread misinformation about what's really happening. And I don't think that most of us get what's going on. They want to talk about a great economy, et cetera, et cetera. You're going to want to see this. And as I said, Steve Cortes, we're going to get to his video in a second. it will make you laugh and then make you probably cry because you realize how scary what's going on in this country is. With that, I want to bring in our panel. As I mentioned, Steve Cortes, former colleague of mine at Newsmax, a Trump 2016 and 2020 veteran. He is the founder of the League of American Workers. Rob Bluey is the president and executive editor of the Daily Signal, a place that you definitely need to subscribe to and check out the amazing stories that they do. Again, stuff you're not going to see in the mainstream legacy left-wing media. And Carrie Sheffield, a senior policy analyst for the Independent Women's Forum, and a brand new kick-ass author that is doing really well. An amazing story of her life. If you haven't picked it up yet, go check out her brand new book. It's available on Amazon, and it's a really compelling story. Guys, thanks for being here. I want to just start with the convention. Rob Bluey, tell me, just give me your impressions. Is it, stop for a second. I want to, in all seriousness, I want to be objective because I everyone who watches this, we all know what side I'm on. I know what side most of us are on. But just objectively speaking, I can always tell people it's a good, such and such was a good speech. Doesn't mean I like you. I sometimes think the New York Jets play a good game. Doesn't mean I want them to win. In fact, I hate them. I want them to lose every game. But I can be objective sometimes and say that was a good pass. That was a good run, right? That doesn't mean I like them. How is the convention going for Democrats, Rob?
Well, I'll be as objective as I can, Sean. I would say on the positive side, they've had a lot of star power. So Oprah Winfrey, Stevie Wonder, John Legend. I mean, you can go down the list. And they are trying to make this as much about a personality contest between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. They don't want to make it about policy. Yeah. And they know that is the loser because look at what has happened over the last 3.5 years. The American people have soundly rejected the policies of the Biden-Harris administration. I mean, Donald Trump continues, even though it seems that his lead is narrowing against Harris on the economy and immigration, some other issues. But if you look back at the record of Trump's 4 years in office versus Biden's 4 years in office, and Biden and Harris, by the way, there's no doubt in my mind that the American people would side with Trump. Personal finances, which you just mentioned, for instance, Americans, 40% of Americans say their personal finances are getting worse today. That usually is a sign that things are not going well for the incumbent party. And I think that's probably why they have focused so much on the star power and the entertainment value of the convention as opposed to substantive policy.
You bring up the entertainment value, Rob. I will tell you, for the one thing that I wanted to see, and I know where he comes from, so don't get mad at me, but I'm a James Taylor fan. And they pushed that guy aside quicker than they pushed Biden out, right? It was running late. They pushed James Taylor out. And I'm like, that's the only one I want to see. I don't really care about Pink or John Legend. I mean, my God, John Legend is the overexposed person of the year when it comes to entertainers. I don't know. I find it fascinating. The idea of like, we're going to use this opportunity, this infomercial, and we're going to let Pink play. Like, who cares? No one goes, you know what? I wasn't sure who to vote for, but I saw Pink at the DNC. Carrie Sheffield, speaking of Pink, I don't know if that's pink or whatever color you're wearing today, but it was a nice segue. You're the target audience, or people like you. They want to talk about reproductive rights and women and all this. I get that might not, as a conservative woman, but do you think that there's any appeal to women like you that might make you reconsider or bring you over based on what one would hear over the last few days?
Well, what's interesting is I actually thought the reverse. I actually thought it was in some ways a very feminized event. But the thing is, Democrats really struggle with men. So if they were trying to go on offense, the Democrats should have actually had a more masculine approach, in my view. And that was what was really smart about the first night of and the overall theme of the RNC. In contrast, you had all these female members of the Trump family, his granddaughter, Lara Trump. You had Sarah Huckabee Sanders with an off-the-shoulder gown. I was like, ooh, Sarah, you're looking kind of svelty here. And her hair was very curly and just very feminine. And I was like, Sean's laughing because he worked with her.
No, but you know what? Like, you're the first person to point this out. And I think it's actually brilliant because there's a massive gender gap. And the analysis that you're pointing out right now is actually really smart. I mean, I listened to Dana Bash the other day, or I listened to a clip of her, just to be clear, for people wondering about my viewing habits. And it was her saying, that Doug Emhoff, and who was the other dude that spoke they were like, and Tim Walz, they're like, they demasculinize, like the RNC had these tough guys like Hulk Hogan and Dana White, and this is the not tough dude version and I was like, I don't know, even like wimps, if you're a guy, you always sort of still are like, I'd rather be that guy than the wussy guy.
Can speak to men out there who might not be the sort of testosterone-laden, gun-toting kind of guy who wants to listen to Hulk Hogan and the kind of players that came out at the RNC.
I mean, Steve Cortes, interesting. I think Carrie's making a really interesting point. I'm thinking about it as I'm talking about it. That, like, it's true. These guys are like the wussy party, and they're like, everybody gets a trophy party, as opposed to ours was like, you know what? Sometimes you need to stand tough and fight, take on the threats of the world. How does that sit with you?
Right. No, like, so do we want to elevate aspirational masculinity, or do we want to accept low testosterone, sort of weak masculinity, right? And I think, Dana Bash, I think you're exactly correct. I was astounded at that clip of her, quite honestly. And my guess is she wished she didn't say it. She sort of said the quiet part out loud, because she literally said, without using the phrase, what she described is that the Democrat Party is going to appeal to effectively low testosterone men, and that is their audience. Well,
maybe that's why they're giving vasectomies to everybody out there.
Yeah, I mean, that obviously that nonsense going on, which is not even laughable. I mean, I shouldn't even smile, because I think there's something demonic, quite frankly, going on with the idea that you're going to.
I'm very much, just to be. I've said this before. I'm on the record. I want more men. We need more buses in Chicago helping these people get vasectomies. Yeah. I am a huge supporter of everyone there not having a child.
Now, Sean, having said that, I will say this to try to be objective. Look, I do believe that they're putting on an effective show. Now, it is a show, and it's a farce, and it's disingenuous. But the fact that they were able to, in a bloodless coup, depose the duly elected leader, replace him with no real consternation, with no real upheaval of any kind. There's not significant protest, neither outside. I'm in Chicago, by the way, right now. I'm attending this convention, believe it or not. So there's not serious protest outside the arena. There's not serious protest inside the arena. That's a big win for the Democrats. Now, I happen to believe this is their high watermark, but I think those of us on the right have to acknowledge they're having a good run, and they're having a very good week, I think, so far. Again, it's a show, and it's false, but it's well performed.
So two things. One, I want to pick up on this. It is a show, and that's exactly the right way to look at this on both sides. And that's why I say sometimes when the State of the Union comes off, and the point that I was making at the beginning, to give a good speech, to put on a good show, it's not easy. Having been part of these, but it's a show. You can script it, right? And I think that's exactly the way to look at it. Although I would argue that logistically, from what I gather, it's not as simple as that. And there are some issues. Okay, that being said, and Rob, you're the perfect person to segue this into. To Steve's point, I'm watching Tim Walz get up there. Like, let's go through the Tim Walz record. He lied about his family situation with IVF. He lied about his military record. He lied about Minneapolis in the wake of the George Floyd killing. And he lied about his DWI incidents. And yet he gets up there and gives this speech, and everyone calls him like America's dad and Midwest nice and all this crap. Bill Clinton gets up there, who, I don't know, I mean, let's forget how many times he's lied, but the fact is he was on Jeffrey Epstein's plane over and over again and held unaccountable for that. He's got at least 4 credible accusers. I'm actually shouldn't even say 4. It's at least 4 well-known credible accusers of sexual assault. Like, and this guy stands up there and then but issue after issue goes unchallenged. And I would say, to Steve's point, that's what I would give them credit for. They get a pass on all this crap that goes on at their convention without any accountability. I mean, I remember doing vetting for some of the speakers once in a while, or getting, a call saying, hey, what do you think about this? And I'm like, dude, this guy's got this baggage here. This is going to come up. He tweeted when he was 8 years old that this is going to happen, and that's going to come back to us. And yet these guys are like, hey, you think anything's going to happen if we put Clinton up there? No, who's going to say anything, right? They get away with it, Rob. And I feel like from a media standpoint, maybe I can't get over it, but I feel like we have to keep calling this out.
Oh, we absolutely do. And let's take a deeper dive on Tim Walz's speech since you brought it up. First of all, 16 minutes or so. I mean, I thought it was remarkably short. I mean, that was at least 10 minutes shorter than Bill Clinton's speech, who apparently went long. Steve, what I've heard from people who were in the room that the audience was ready for Clinton to move on and grateful when he finally exited the stage after overstaying his welcome. But when it comes to Tim Walz, you mentioned all of those issues, which he brought up. By the way, he brought up his military service. The video that introduced him apparently got the title wrong again. I mean, so just easy things that you could fact check. Sean, the one thing you didn't mention, which I think is important, I think will be a factor in this election, because we know it was a factor in Virginia, is the fact that he closed the schools down and kept them closed during COVID. And yet he's the one lecturing Republicans about freedom when he took away the educational freedom of parents to choose where to send their kids and made it very difficult for students to learn during that period of time. And so you can go through all the issues. I think Tim Walz had one message there. He was trying to appeal to working class, rural voters who may identify with him as a coach, may try to identify with him as a dad. And so, you know, those were things that were all symbols, and they obviously were holding up the signs and doing things of that nature. But when it came to policy substance, it was really devoid of any sort of significance there. And I think as a result, you didn't really get a whole lot out of this. And this is what the Democrats are hoping. I mean, their surrogates admit it. They don't want to talk about the policy issues because they know that they will lose if that's what this election becomes referendum on.
Rob, you mentioned Virginia there, and this is significant because, of course, corporate media is not going to amplify this, but Sean Spicer will, because he's a truth teller. The new poll from Roanoke College in Virginia shows Trump only down 3% in a state that he lost by 10 in 2020. Now, do I think we're going to win Virginia? No, I do not. I do not believe that Virginia is actually in play. But the reality is, if we're only down 3 in Virginia, that tells me that we are going to run away with North Carolina and Georgia, because they are similar states, but much more red than Virginia is, because it doesn't have, those states more resemble the rest of Virginia, ex Nova, ex Northern Virginia, which of course is super liberal. So that is a data point, which isn't going to get very much attention this week, but I think deserves to get attention. If Trump is down 3 in Virginia, despite whatever's going on in Chicago, and despite them, again, I think they're putting on a good show. I do. I'll give them that credit. I think it's false, but it's a good show. If though, despite the media propaganda in Chicago, if Trump is only down 3 in Virginia, things are going to look really good, I think, in the other swing states.
I think as a Virginia voter, with all due respect, I think Virginia is totally winnable. I'm property owner here in Arlington. I think it's winnable. I want to be hopeful. I don't want to be irrationally hopeful, but I think the fact that Glenn Youngkin is working with Trump, I think there's a way to modulate really focusing on policy in Virginia, because that's what the voters care about here. But as far as the convention, I just want to point out a couple of things about Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton, he repeatedly mispronounced Kamala's name, which is a really bad look.
Kamala Harris.
Wait, no, hold on, Carrie. First of all, again, hat tip, Carrie, for bringing this up. It's not just a bad look. It's apparently racist if you do this on the right. And when they do it, it's like no one even says anything. But it's Obama did it, Clinton did it. It's okay on their side. When we do it, we have inherent racism. We need to go to a DEI class. And I'm glad you brought it up again. Again, you're killing it.
Thanks, Sean. Yeah. And yeah, it's absolutely a double standard. And it's, you know, if there was no standard, a double standard for the left, there would be no standards at all. But Bill Clinton, he also compared crooked Joe Biden to George Washington, which to me is like utter disrespect to our founding father who created this beautiful country and threw off a monarchy. Like the analogy couldn't be like more far-fetched. Like, because Joe Biden is putting us under crippling debt. He's making us a slave to our debt, whereas George Washington freed us. He freed us from the monarchy. I mean, it's so offensive. And then just the way the Bill Clinton with Joe Biden, you know, I don't think Joe Biden's George Washington, but I also think he was, as Stu pointed out, duly elected. And yet Bill Clinton told the Democrats, he said, a load is off our shoulders. after they shoved Biden out. It was so inhumane the way that he just treated Joe Biden like he's yesterday's garbage because he's a senior citizen. I don't know how that's going to play with like the AARP crowd.
Yeah. You know, Carrie, I'm so glad you brought up George Washington because I think this is important. I think, unfortunately, George Washington has become almost kind of a cartoon character to a lot of Americans. He's almost a caricature rather than a real person. But if you really study his life, I believe personally he is probably the most honorable man in all of American history. I think he's one of the most honorable men in the history of the world, quite frankly. The indispensable man, a person who literally passed up the chance to be a king when he clearly could have been. A man who was the wealthiest man in America, risked everything for the revolution, for this cause. If it had not worked, in all likelihood, would have been executed. He literally risked his life for this country, certainly his fortune. And you're exactly correct. To compare him, to put Joe Biden in the same sentence as if he has risked anything like George Washington did, as if he has anywhere near the character that George Washington and the intelligence and the guts and the grit, it's absolutely insulting. So the historian in me took great umbrage at that. And thank you, Carrie, for mentioning it.
Yeah, the contrast is unbelievable. George Washington did something selfless for the country. Joe Biden got pushed aside. No one pushed George Washington, I don't think. All right, I want to get to, Steve, you mentioned you're in Chicago. I'm telling you, I love gimmicks. I love swag. I love earned media. And like, I want to get to the video that you did because it's friggin' awesome. Before I do that, I want to tell you about my friends at Tax Network USA, because we talk about these things and the impact that elections have. When the Democrats were in charge, they spent a ton of money hiring 50,000 new IRS agents. What are those IRS agents doing? They're not sitting around Washington, D.C. They are coming after all of us. They're sending around these new pay-up notices. So if you owe $5,000, $5 million, $50,000, it doesn't matter. Dollars, personal, business, it doesn't matter. They're going to come after you. They've got the resources of the federal government, and their goal is to squeeze you for whatever they can get out of you. It doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. They know that they have all of that behind them. This isn't a cost-benefit, return on investment kind of discussion. They go, let's get this person in, and they'll make you pay up. Here's the upside. You have the professionalism, the expertise, and the results of the Tax Network USA folks on your side. Call 1-800-245-6000 or tnusa.com/Sean Spicer. Full name there. This is your test. You got to be able to put tnusa.com/Sean Spicer, and you will get their help. They have recovered over $1 billion for their clients. They know exactly what they're doing, and they can help you. If you get a call, a knock on your door, a letter, do not talk to the IRS without having professional help. My advice is the best people in the business to help you are the people with the results of the folks at Tax Network USA. Go to tnusa.com/Sean Spicer to take advantage of their help, and you will not regret it. Do not try to fight them on your own. All right, Steve, I mentioned the video that you did. I just want to play it for people because I don't even think I can do it justice. Let's play Steve's video out in Chicago doing his public service for the Democrats.
Hey, Steve Cortes here on the west side of Chicago, Democratic National Convention at United Center. The Democrats, of course, want open borders and want an endless stream of illegal migrants pouring into the United States. This is my new acquaintance, Edwin. Say hello.
My name is Edwin. Nice to meet you.
Edwin is from Venezuela. And we're going to take Edwin into the DNC so that he can meet the Democrats who want open borders. He should meet his new friends, hear the speakers, and learn about the Democratic Party. So, Edwin, let's head in, shall we?
Excelente.
Right. This is Edwin from Venezuela, migrant, invited in by the Democrat Party. He'd like to come into the Democratic Convention.
You have to get your credentials.
Some credentials.
Yep, you have to go to Jackson.
Yep.
Wait, you mean he needs credentials and permission to come in?
Yes.
To get past the wall?
Yes.
Oh, it's like a border wall in a way, huh?
Yeah. You have to have ID, credentials. He can come
Okay,
in.
to come to the United States?
No, to come
Not to come to the
here.
United States, okay, but to come to the Democratic Convention.
Here, baby.
Okay, you believe in security. You believe in securing a boundary. Edwin can't come in.
Without credentials.
That's all I know.
I commend you on guarding this border. You're doing it very effectively, folks.
Thank you.
Good morning. Hi there. We would like to get some credentials for Edwin. Come on, Edwin. Edwin is from Venezuela.
I am right.
So we tried to get Edwin into the convention. He's a migrant from Venezuela. No organization, just American. And he's a migrant from Venezuela. Wanted to get into the convention. We figured that we'd love to have a migrant from Venezuela come in. They said we need to get credentials, so we're here to get the credentials.
Okay. Has anyone filled out an application for him?
So you have to. There's a process in the application. I mean, he didn't have that at the border.
Okay. I have my own personal beliefs on this, but right now I'm serving as custody, so I'm asking to turn the camera off.
Just to be clear, we have been ejected from the DNC credentialing office because we're not permitted to be here. We don't have permission. We didn't go through the application process. It seems like the United States would use similar rules about crossing the U.S. border. DNC doesn't believe in that, but they do believe in it for their own convention.
All right, Steve, tell me, just explain what, again, brilliant. The thing that I love is that you, at every moment, explained how hypocritical it was.
Right.
And I was like, it was intuitive, but you pulled it out of them. You pulled the string, led them to water, if you will. Why did you do this? And how did you meet Edwin? I was like, dude, that was like, did he realize what was going on?
Oh, totally. And by the way, yeah, we were totally transparent with Edwin. He knew exactly what we were doing. I speak okay Spanish, but we had a translator there who speaks very good Spanish, so that we made sure he understood exactly what he was doing. Here's where we met Edwin. There's a place called the Standard Club in Chicago, which used to be a very elite private city club, mostly Jewish membership. It closed down during the pandemic, during the COVID crisis. It is now a migrant dorm. It's full of Venezuelans. It's incredible to me, by the way. I mean, it boggles my mind as a former Chicagoan that this former elite private club is now a migrant hotel that we pay for, a migrant dorm that we pay for them to live. So I found Edwin outside there, and I knew there's always migrants there. I come to Chicago a lot, even though I don't live here anymore. They're typically outside most of the time, quite honestly, smoking and drinking, not up to very much good outside of the hotel. And that's where we found Edwin and got him to come with us then, not very far from there to the near west side of Chicago, to the United Center. And I wanted to make the point because, of course, I knew he would be refused, and he should be refused, right? He does not have credentials, nor did I, to get in properly, right? But it's okay for the DNC to have rules, to have a border that is heavily guarded with guns, with walls, with rules. That's okay for the DNC, but it's not okay for the United States. So I thought it was important for us to highlight that duplicity and show it to the world. Thankfully, Elon Musk responded a couple times, to actually 2 different instances, to my video, which really made it go viral, and it has had millions and millions of views. But we need to expose this to the world. And by the way, Edwin, just so you know too, great guy. I mean, we had wonderful conversations, and I don't blame him. I want to make that point too. I don't blame the migrants. They're making a rational choice. If I'm in Venezuela or if I'm in Guatemala and I know that Joe Biden is not just inviting me into the United States, but is actually incentivizing me, that I'm going to be welcomed, I'm going to be paid for, and I'm going to have an opportunity to be an American at some point. If Kamala Harris wins, that will happen. These people will be amnestied. I'm going to make that choice. That's a rational choice. I don't blame the migrants. I blame the Democrats. I blame Joe Biden. I blame Kamala Harris. I blame the DNC for this crazy duplicity. They want these people flooding into our country, but not their celebration in Chicago.
There's no question in my mind that this is going to be the deciding issue this election, much in the same way in 2016 it was what I think put Donald Trump over the top. And it's precisely the hypocrisy that Steve is pointing out with this incredible video that is on display, not just at the Democratic National Convention, but all over the country, frankly, in terms of how they operate. And if you're Donald Trump, I think this is where you can have your greatest strength against Kamala Harris, particularly as he prepares for their debate on September 10th. You need to show the contrast between what Trump was able to do as president when it came to securing the border, not only with the policies, but the physical wall, and what Kamala Harris decided to do, which was largely be MIA when she was given responsibility as the border czar. And so, Sean, I think if you are able to isolate that issue, even maybe more so than the economy and inflation, where she's shown more strength than Joe Biden, I think that it gives the American people a strong signal of where each of these candidates is headed in the future.
Yeah, I agree with that. And especially when it comes to women's rights. So Kamala, it was all supposed to be this rah-rah feminist thing. But Kamala Harris's border policies are sexist and harmful to women, depending on which report you're looking at. Amnesty International or what have you, they say between 60 to 70% of women will be sexually assaulted trying to cross the border. Some say 30%, regardless, 30 to 70%. The fact that we don't even know is also disturbing. But I've never once in my life, as someone who works on women's rights issues, I've never heard Kamala Harris or frankly any Democrat really championed this issue on the border as a women's rights and a human rights issue. The fact that sexual violence is normalized, human trafficking is normalized along our southern border, it's disgusting. And the hypocrisy is just so blatant. And that's why for the first time since 2001, almost a quarter century now, according to Gallup, when they were tracking this, it's the highest number of Americans who say that illegal immigration is a critical threat to our country. So I agree with Rob that this is a signature keystone issue. And the fact that Tim Walz embraces sanctuary cities, he embraces sanctuary states, the Republicans should be hammering both of them on this.
Can I ask you guys, like, Rob, you said this is the most important issue. And I'm with you. Like, I think immigration to me is so many issues in one word, right? It's a safety issue. It's an economic issue. It's about drugs and families and community. I mean, like, there's so many things that stem from it that I think that you can message this in ways that move and persuade everybody. That being said, there's a discussion among a lot of folks about the best way, the most effective way to message against Kamala Harris, right? Is it an issue? Is it calling her a phony? Is it calling her a flip-flopper? Is it calling her a far-left, crazy San Francisco liberal? Because there's a difference. I think one of the things I always try to tell people in campaigns is ads aren't necessarily made to reassure people who are already supporting you. The ads and the messaging is to get those who aren't there over the top, right? So sometimes you'll see an ad and say, God, that doesn't move me. It's like, well, because you're already supporting Donald Trump. This is about getting that, 1, 2, 3% that we need to get 50 plus 1. That being said, let me just go around real quick. Like, Rob, do you believe that immigration is the most effective message against her?
I do, because if you look at the economy and inflation, where Trump had a significant lead over Biden, particularly because he made the mistake of branding his policies Bidenomics, I feel like Harris doesn't necessarily carry all of that baggage. And she's adopted some of the same populist ideas that Trump and Vance are promoting. And so the one area where you have a clear contrast seems to be the border and immigration, which is why I think that that's where Trump should lean in.
Okay. Carrie?
Yeah, I mean, I think immigration is a top issue. I do think that when it comes to the economy, that people do vote with their pocketbooks. I think that's why you saw Trump putting a visual with a bunch of food from the grocery store. The fact that real incomes are down per family $2,100. This, people are less wealthy. We're more poor under Biden. And yes, we've got to eliminate any daylight between Kamala-nomics and Bidenomics. And that's where I think they should be really hammering on Kamala-nomics, because inflation overall is 20% since Biden took office, 20%.
And then she's part of that. It's Biden-Harris. Steve, before I get to you, because you're the veteran of Trump 2016 and 2020, you know the media narrative. Oh, he's got to stop the personal attacks. He's got to be more policy focused. The president addressed that yesterday. I want to just play this for you, because I got asked the other day when Obama went after him and someone goes, do you think Trump's going to respond? I was like, is that are you trying to screw with me? Because, in 10 years, you don't think Trump's going to now respond. This is how he responded yesterday. Friggin' brilliant. Let's play. And then I want to get your take on it.
Did you see Barack Hussein Obama last night? Take little shots. He was taking shots at your president. And so was Michelle. They always say, sure, please stick to policy. Don't get personal. And yet they're getting personal all night long, these people. Do I still have to stick to policy?
So, Steve, I mean, that's the fundamental question, right? They get to call him names, make fun of him, and it's like Donald Trump should be sticking to policy. I get it. I'm not saying like I did, but it's like he's got a point. Why do I have to do this? Why do they get to make fun of me, call me names, mock me, and I'm supposed to just sit there and be like, the economic indicators are clear that da-da-da-da. I mean, it's like, that's not him.
Yeah, listen, it's an important distinction, because the Democrats clearly, and this is smart of them, right? They are very tactical. They're malevolent, but they're not dumb. Okay, our opponents, they know they can't run on the issues. They can't run on inflation, right? As Carrie was mentioned, they can't run on that. So what are they doing? They're running an emotion, quote, vibes election that we're going to make history, and we're going to have the first black woman. She's going to be elected, right? That's what they're running on. They're running on an emotional appeal. And the Republicans should respond in part with emotion. Now, not only emotion, of course, we don't want to be the Democrats, but we should also respond with things that do pull at the heartstrings or at fear and at legitimate fear. And when it comes to the border, by the way, I think this is our most emotional argument. Right. Now, it's based on reason. It's based on policy, right? That the United States should have a sovereign and controlled border and that we have a right to filter who comes into this country. It's based on reason, but it's also very emotional, I think, for people to realize that this country's out of control, that we don't have a border, and that you should not feel safe, right? So in other words, let's answer their emotion with our emotion. I think that's important. I think a lot of us on the right, we want to believe that all these decisions are going to be made on sort of cost-benefit analyses, and we to our discredit, I think we don't pay enough attention to the emotional appeal that's important. The Democrats get that. We need to get it also, though, because we've got our emotional appeal, and again, I think it's mainly via immigration, which is one of the reasons that I pulled off this stunt at the DNC, right, to highlight their hypocrisy, their duplicity, and to highlight that, look, this country right now, our front door is wide open. We have no idea who's coming into this country. We know that we're paying for them, millions and millions of people. We need to emotionally appeal to the American people that this is not okay. It's not safe. It's not good for your security. It's not good for your prosperity. And if you like Donald Trump, this stops. Trump and Vance will stop it.
100%. And safety is I've said this before, safety is a gut issue. You don't feel safe walking down the street. Yeah. And that's what an open border does. Just as a side note, if you want to see that video again or share it, I tweeted out Steve's video there, and it's available on his Twitter or X handle. We'll put the link in the bio as well if you want to go help it. But I want to play you another video because the other big issue is the economy. And CNBC, well, there was some breaking news yesterday, but I want to play you the CNBC breaking news on the economy yesterday. And then I want to just subsequently show you right off the bat how the Secretary of Commerce responded to that news. So I'm going to play you the CNBC piece first about the breaking news in our economy, and then show you how the Secretary of Commerce in the Biden administration, who apparently is going to be Treasury Secretary if Kamala wins, this is how she responded to it. So we'll play one and then the other.
You know, the range of how many jobs they would take away for a variety of reasons, maybe the largest is the birth-death model for businesses, was going to be somewhere between 350,000 and 1 million. It comes in at 818,000.
All right, so we lost almost 1 million jobs revised downward. Then this is how the Secretary of Commerce responds to that breaking news from the government numbers. Take a look.
When you hear that, do you potentially think that this new numbers could be a liability for this campaign?
No. When I hear that, first of all, I don't believe it because I've never heard Donald Trump say anything truthful.
It is, though, from the Bureau of Labor.
I'm not familiar with...
Rob Bluey. She doesn't believe the government numbers. She's not... she is the Secretary of Commerce. This isn't... Right. I've seen a lot of stuff get blamed on Donald Trump, but not the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
That's right. It is just an incredible clip. Thank you for highlighting it again. It just shows how out of touch the people who are in the inner circle or living in the top 1% are with what's going on with the rest of the country. It doesn't take a rocket science to figure out that things are not all right with the everyday American and the working class voters who are struggling to afford gas, groceries, and rent each and every month. And yet here the Commerce Secretary is trying to deny the Biden administration's own statistics. It brings up a couple of questions, though, Sean. First of all, how did they get away with reporting higher numbers each and every month only to have them revised? Number one, I think questions should be asked of the Bureau of Labor Statistics about what's really going on there. And secondly, it points to the failures of this administration investing so much in government. Government jobs were the only area to show some growth. And I don't think that that's what the American people want to see. They would like to see the private sector gaining opportunities that they and their kids and grandkids can go and pursue. And that's just not realistic right now. And it's the reason why I think so many younger Americans realize that the American dream of owning a home, which they no longer can afford, finding a job, moving out of their parents' home, are just not realistic.
Yeah, Rob, I completely agree with Rob. And it's so important to highlight what he just said, because the fact that the revisions showed an revision upward of government jobs, but a downward revision of private sector jobs, that is stunning. The private sector jobs of construction, manufacturing, finance, they're revised downward, while the government fake jobs, I call it like a Potemkin village, basically. Government jobs are fake jobs. They're like Soviet jobs. So if those are the only, or one of the fastest growing, I believe healthcare is the only faster growing, but that is a lot of government jobs because you got Medicare and Medicaid paying for those jobs. These are not real jobs. Right. These are jobs that are being paid for by you and me and layered on by approaching $40 trillion in debt in the next 10 years. So this is not real economy. This is monopoly money. And that's the other thing that the Trump campaign should be hammering, because this is sort of like lies, and dance statistics. The Biden-Harris White House wants us to believe that everything's great, but these are not real jobs. These are government taxpayer subsidized jobs that we will be paying for.
No, it's such an important point, Carrie. I'm glad you made it, that it's all government jobs, and then healthcare, which is quasi-government, right? Which is basically government jobs. And in my past professional life, I was a bond trader, and we professionally lived and died for the jobs report, right? It comes out the first Friday of every month. You went to bed extra early that Thursday night because it was that big a deal to financial markets, particularly for people like me in the seat I used to be in of managing money and trading. And now I don't think these reports are even believable, because here's the thing, Sean, when the quote mistake continues to happen month after month in the exact same direction, is it a mistake, right? I mean, the fact that they're revised downward in terms of total job gains every single time, it strains credulity, right? That are they really believable
based
numbers?
On your background, do you think that I need to tap into your expertise here? And I got a D in economics, so like, just bear with me here. The Fed wants to see the market stall, right, in order to cut interest rates.
Correct.
So is there a case to be made that they wanted these numbers to look bad right now so that the Fed would cut interest rates so that the Biden-Harris team could say, hey, interest rates are going down? Am I off base on that, or does that make sense at all?
No, I mean, that is correct. Although I will also say this, given that we're now only, weeks away from the election, it's probably too late for the Fed to have serious effect, at least on the electoral. And don't get me wrong, I think the Fed is totally politicized. I've never believed the nonsense that it's truly independent, that it's apolitical. I mean, look, every institution, you folks know this who live in Washington, D.C., every institution of power in Washington, D.C. is thoroughly politicized, including the Fed. So I think the Fed is very political, is obviously very pro-Biden. But having said that, I think it's a little too late for them to have a material effect on this election. But regardless, the more important point, I think, for the American people is that the team Biden, they have really tried, Biden and Harris, they have tried to promote constantly the job market as being sort of the saving grace, because Americans hate this economy, especially middle-class Americans. They are doing miserably. To Carrie's point, they are getting literally poorer by the day. Real wages, which is what matters, which is your pay adjusted for inflation, going down for all Americans, but particularly for working-class people. They hate this economy. The Biden-Harris team has tried to hang their hat on the jobs data. We now know that much of that was a farce as well.
Yeah, well, and I will say I'm a former bond analyst myself from Moody's, so we've got two bond people here.
Wow.
I like to joke I'm a retired bond girl. So, but the only point I would add though is household debt. Also, it's a very important metric. Household debt is record highs under Joe Biden. You're talking approaching $15 trillion. Like, that is, to me, staggering, and that's on top of our national public debt. This cannot go on. And so this party that the DNC is having, it's like the punch bowl. They just want to keep pouring more booze into the punch bowl. But the debt's piling up, household debt, in addition to our public debt. It's got to stop.
Rob, I don't know. I mean, like I said, we got two bond traders and a guy who got a D in economics. I want to shift gears, though, because we always try to end on Thursdays with winners and losers. Let's just go around the horn quickly. Who's your winner of the week?
Winner of the week, I'm going to give the award to the Chicago Police Department. They
have
responded
Great call.
In force to the protest. In fact, I would like to know why the Chicago Police Department doesn't act this way on a year-long basis. I mean, Brandon Johnson should deploy them to Chicago and clamp down on the crime that's going on. I mean, Steve pointed out that the protests have not been what we expected.
Carrie Sheffield, who's your winner?
My winner is Meg Weinberger. She just won the primary for a House seat down in Florida. She had the endorsement of President Trump. They call her MAGA Meg, and her opponents were trying to slime her. It was interesting because her second place lead opponent had Ron DeSantis's endorsement, so it was really this kind of clash of the titans. But she's phenomenal. She is basically a saint. She rescues animals. She and her husband have this animal sanctuary. She's also helped a lot with foster kids. And I mean, she's going to be a phenomenal member of the House there in Florida. So congratulations to Meg Weinberger.
Okay. Steve Cortes, who do you have as your winner?
I'm going to give it to Edwin the migrant. He was a great sport. I really enjoyed getting to know him. I really did. 21-year-old from Venezuela. He's become sort of internet famous now because of that video. So Edwin the migrant.
Yeah, he better hope Donald Trump doesn't win, though. All right, Rob, who do you have as your loser?
Well, I'm going to have to go with former Speaker Kevin McCarthy, who poured a lot of resources into taking out Matt Gaetz. And now Matt Gaetz, emerging victorious in Florida's elections this week, seems pivoted to focus on running statewide as maybe the next governor of Florida. I will tell you, I'm a little... The one thing, I get why Kevin McCarthy's pissed off and he wants to enact revenge. Okay, I'm Irish. I get that. But I feel like we're wasting money. I don't like red on red. I think it's like you want to stop Matt Gaetz from running for Florida's governor. Okay, one thing, but don't screw with don't waste time and energy that could be helping maintain a very, very fragile House majority. Elect more people that could will support. Anyway, I get that he's pissed. Focus on building and be a hero as opposed to someone. Anyway, Carrie, who's your winner?
I think my loser. So my loser was the Washington Post. Go figure. So this week this is kind of a secondary obituary. Phil Donahue was longtime talk show host. He passed away. In his obituary, they listed some of the people that he interviewed, and they put Ayn Rand, one of the most successful writers of all time. There was a survey on her sales. Yep. They were second only to the Bible globally. They put her in the same camp as a controversial guest, same as Nation of Islam leader Louis Farrakhan, known anti-Semite, and Ku Klux Klan Grand Wizard David Duke. So the fact that she's in the same breath as these individuals, they also had her in the same camp as Hitler's gardener.
You had me, just for what it's worth, you had me at Washington Post. Steve Cortes, who's your loser of the week?
My loser is Joe Biden. I could not believe how emasculated he was. He was politically knifed with a shiv by the Democrat Party, and yet he showed up on Monday night and praised the very people who deposed him. I thought it was shameful. He's my loser.
That's a good, Good roundup. I'm actually going to play both sides on mine. My winner of the week, my loser of the week is Robert F. Kennedy. He's having to close up camp tomorrow. Big announcement in Arizona. We will cover that. I'll tell you about that in a second. And my winner of the week, because of Robert F. Kennedy, is likely going to be President Trump. Because I think that this breadth of support that could come to him, 1, 2, 3, 4%, is going to be critical in these battleground states. Tomorrow, by the way, James Blair, the political director of the Trump campaign, is going to be on. We're going to talk to him about the ground game. I want to talk to him about RFK and how important this is going to be to him. So anyway, panel, thank you for being here. Big show tomorrow. As I said, James Blair, the political director of the Trump campaign, talking about that critical ground game. That's why you need to subscribe, hit the notification button. YouTube, Rumble, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you back here tomorrow on the Sean Spicer Show. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.